Hi, my name's Rachel, and today we're going to talk about November 9 by Colleen Hoover.
No! God, please, no! 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 No!
Which managed to make me rage as much as Ugly Love did by the end, a feat that I did not think could be accomplished. Whereas this one is about a guy being a creep, November 9 is about a guy being a creep and lying for 5 years to a girl about something horrible he did, and then convincing her that the lie wasn't that bad. Yay! Now, after reading 2 of Colleen Hoover's books, I feel that I have found the problem. 2 of her romance books, at least. If we would stop making these romances, and instead maybe stop excusing terrible behavior and do a genre change to make them romantic suspense, maybe they wouldn't be half bad. Maybe just 25% bad. Maybe we wouldn't see the same problems repeated over and over. Because my God, the men in these books do not deserve to have their actions excused. Now let's say you're a writer who's done this repeatedly and you're looking to fix the problem. We could shift over, like I said, from romance to romantic suspense, blend the elements of romance with thriller suspense, and have a completely different reading experience by the end. And if you're unfamiliar with how to write suspense, look no further than today's sponsor, Skillshare. Author Benjamin Percy's class on Skillshare about suspense has been so helpful for me in writing reviews recently because he really breaks down understanding suspense as a storytelling tactic, as a writing tool. The class is called Writing Suspense: How to Write Stories That Thrill in Any Genre. And in it, he breaks down the essentials of writing a story that utilizes suspense not just overall, but scene by scene. So not just making suspense the one overall goal, but making incremental scenes that also feature suspense leading up to the end, using things like midpoint reversals in helping you develop a plot that keeps your reader wanting more. Part of the problem I had with November 9 that we're going to talk about today is that not only is the big reveal excused, but an opportunity that we could have had for a midpoint reversal was not utilized. The suspenseful lead up is non-existent. Percy also discusses controlling what the reader knows and doesn't know for a thrilling effect that he calls temporary blindness, which November 9 is one of the worst examples of ever. And he also goes over building three-dimensional characters with clear motivations and entwining the narrative plot and the emotional plot of your work, something that I think this book in particular we're going to talk about today really could have benefited from. I found this class really helpful in helping me to articulate where we could have taken this story from being a bad romance to a book that could have been a great romantic suspense story. So I'm just a reviewer, I'm not a writer, but I am going to use this class to help me review this book today. But whether you're a writer or a reviewer, you can learn so much from Skillshare classes. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives, and they have a wide breadth of topics, everything from illustration, photography, graphic design, music, marketing, productivity, and they have tons of writing classes. They have authors teaching classes such as Saba Tahir and Kirsten White. Skillshare is an online platform and it has stackable lessons so members can learn at their own pace no matter what your skill level is. So whether you want to learn the basics of graphic design or how to start your own creative business, Skillshare has classes that can take you from beginner to pro, with a supportive community that you can chat with and work on your projects with. And you can focus your creative journey with Skillshare learning paths, which are a set of curated classes that build on one another, reinforcing your lessons. They're available in a range of experience levels from beginner to advanced. One learning path I've been utilizing myself is developing memorable fictional characters, which includes Daniel Jose Older's class and Saba Tahir's class, as well as a class by Lindsay Summers that I just took and I'm using to help me develop an upcoming review. The first 500 people to use my link down below will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So whatever your craft is that you're looking to hone, whether it's writing or marketing or art or photography, click that link below to get your 1-month free trial of Skillshare. And thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. Alright, let's talk about November 9 by Colleen Hoover. Yay!
No! God!
At first when I was reading this, I was like, oh, well, it's not as bad as Ugly Love. And then by the end, I was wrong. All of you, when you saw me say that during the reading process of this book, were like,
honey, you've got a big storm coming.
All right, we start off in a restaurant. Fallon, our 18-year-old main character, is having dinner with her father, Donovan O'Neill, an actor and also her acting coach. He lets her know, hey, I've knocked up a 24-year-old, and she contemplates smashing him over the head with a glass. I have contemplated doing the same with my father the last time I spoke to him. My ability to relate to our main character, unfortunately, ends here. And this is due entirely to the way Colleen Hoover writes. She's doing the thing again that we did in Ugly Love, where she's doing very short, choppy sentences that I can't stand. I go to the bathroom. I use a protective seat cover. I read a study on toilets. Always use the first one because it has less germs, because everybody tends to pick the later stalls because they think the first one is germiest, but it's not. I became a germaphobe after I was in the hospital as a kid, which is how I got these scars. I touch the scars that run down my torso. Scars that remind me that the fire was real. I touch them obsessively. I like the way they feel. These are quotes from the book. Ma'am, we are spending too much time in a bathroom right now. This is bonkers. 2 years ago, her father's home was engulfed in flames and she was inside. Apparently her dad, they think her dad caught it on fire and forgot that she was inside. It says eventually the apologies became scarce, as did his visits. And today, November 9th, is the anniversary of this fire. Now, if you know what happened with the fire, like I knew going in, because this book has been out for years and I've heard my friends say a million times what happens, you know how bonkers and ridiculous this story is. But if you don't know, I can't imagine going into this book not knowing and being like, ah, I can't believe it. But the way it was written was not suspenseful at all, and it could have been. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't know how to end it doing my ideas, but any way you end it is better than how it was actually ended. I'm about to get into spoilers, so if you're not into spoilers, don't be here. But if you are into spoilers, let's spoil this right now. The love interest who she's about to meet is not at this restaurant by accident. He is there because he followed her dad there, because he burned down her house. Now, I'm not going to give you any more context. The why, the how, was it on purpose, was it an accident? I'm not going to say anything else because that's as far as I knew. I knew this man burned down her house. So I'm going to take you through this as I was reading it, having the context only that I had. This is a romance about a girl falling in love with a guy who burned down her house with her in it, which left her scarred. She leaves the bathroom finally, and we lock eyes with our love interest, if you want to call him that, or who I assumed at the time while reading was going to be our love interest, because my God, do we spend paragraphs describing how he looks and how attractive he is before we say a goddamn word. Which, if I learned anything from reading Fourth Wing, is how you identify who your love interest is gonna be. And he is locked on. He is staring at her. And she's like, I don't know why his stare is making me uncomfortable, but it is. He must not have noticed my scars. I want to know why Colleen must assault me by continuously writing these books in first person. It feels like a personal attack. This didn't need to be in first. And in fact, by the end, it doesn't even make sense that it's in first, because it's dual POV between Fallon and Ben, the love interest, who again burned down her house. And yet in his own inner monologue that we are hearing, he never thinks about that. And you could say it's unreliable narrator, but if it is, it's the worst case of unreliable narrator that I've ever seen. Because again, it's not controlling what the audience does and doesn't know for like a thrilling effect where you realize that the narrator has been giving you these little hints all along and you just weren't picking up on them until the end. It's just stupid. She goes back to her table after, covering her face with her hair because she's like, oh my God, this hot guy's staring at me. I have to cover my scars. She goes back to her table with her dad. She tells her dad, I'm moving to New York. Hot guy is directly behind her dad at a different booth, okay? And her dad's like, this is stupid. And I agree, but I think all of this is stupid already. But he's referring to the fact that she should move to New York to pursue acting. He tells her that she doesn't have what it takes, which in a way he was right, because she ends up moving back to LA anyway. So God, not the terrible father being correct. We hate when that happens. She is an audiobook narrator though, and her dad is a piece of shit who thinks that this is a stupid job. This we disagree on. God bless audiobook narrators. The one who survived reading this out loud deserves a medal, certainly. Her dad makes a comment on how she doesn't go on a lot of dates since 2 years ago, and she's like, yeah, well, I'm covered in scars from that fire, that's your fault. So the man that was previously locked on, the eventual love interest, comes and slides into the booth sitting next to her and pretends to be her boyfriend without asking, okay? He winks at her and she thinks, then it hits me. He must have overheard me and my dad's entire conversation, and now he's pretending to be my boyfriend. First of all, wow, that took you a while to catch up. Second of all, great. You know what we could have done? Had them talk before this happened and make this idea together. But no, we've always got to give the man more agency in a Colleen Hoover book. Anyway, this guy's name is Ben. Real name, Benton James Kessler. Did you actually think he'd have a normal name like Benjamin. Not in a Colleen Hoover book. I mean, all names are normal. It's just that Colleen Hoover has this tendency to pick like more obscure names, and I'm not sure why, but everything she does sort of annoys me because of the terrible plots she writes and the horrible men she writes, so I'm gonna harp on it anyway. Benton is actually a good name. I would like it if it wasn't in this book. She thinks to herself that her dad is sad that the fire burned away her looks. He thinks she won't make it in Hollywood because she has scars. It's facial scars. It's running down like quite a bit of her body. Like one of her breasts is pretty scarred up, like half of her face, and all the way down her torso. And she did have a studio contract. She was a child star, and she had a TV show running, and the studio ended her contract over the scarring. She tries to leave the booth, and Ben grabs her knee, trying to get her, making her stay. Ben's response to her being like, you can't make it in, her dad saying, you know, you can't make it in Hollywood because you have scars, is to say, sir, did Johnny Cash have a cleft palate? Because Joaquin Phoenix, who portrayed him in Walk the Line, has a prominent scar from a cleft palate. And Academy Award winner Forrest Whitaker has a lazy eye. And I'm like, Colleen, how are you selling this many copies of books? Riveting writing. Again, I can see why this woman sold more copies in 1 year than Bibles were sold. Truly remarkable. Now Fallon and Ben are sitting together, and instead of just writing a guy who isn't a complete douchebag, we sit down at this table in this man's POV, Ben's POV, after her dad has left in a huff. It's just the two of them. And what do you think is a normal way to write his POV after he knows he's sitting at the table with the girl who he definitely owes an apology because he burned down her house with her in it and caused her to have a tremendous amount of scarring from burns? He's thinking about her boobs. We're in his POV listening to him think about her boobs. Colleen, jail. Straight to jail. She asks him, what's your biggest regret? And he says he hasn't experienced it yet. Just want to remind you that this doesn't make sense. At the time, the reader should not know that he burned down her house. But I knew. But I know you. You haven't experienced your biggest regret? You burned down her house? But in order to make it seem like he's not the person who caused her scarring, we just ignore that even though we are in his POV, and the first thing he should be thinking is, that time I burned down your house. Okay. Instead, they go to Paintberry together, which is how this book aged itself. He tells her, you should be beating off men with a stick. But she says she's insecure and men don't talk to her.
You're insecure, don't know what for.
His response is to say, wow, well, when I first saw you, I was in great detail wondering what kind of underwear you were wearing. First of all, gotta say, I'm so glad I'm here for this conversation. Second of all, you burned down her house. That's the first thing you were thinking? You were wondering what kind of underwear she was wearing. This doesn't make any sense. But wait, there's more! Then he tells her that when she walked past him earlier,
You're turning heads when you walk through the door.
and she noticed him noticing her scars, that he noticed her get nervous, and he says that her insecurity meant that he had a shot. And he says that he thought if he played his cards right, then he might be able to find out exactly what kind of underwear she was wearing. Great! Thanks, Colleen. Really glad I'm here for this one. However, she's not interested in striking up a relationship. She's literally leaving tonight on a plane to New York. She's moving, and her mom told her, you'll never find yourself if you're lost in someone else. This will get retconned by the end. We are now on chapter 3. Are you surprised? You shouldn't be, because surprising nobody, certainly not me, there's no plot so far in this Colleen Hoover book. Okay, new day, new outfit, new makeup, back to film this terrible ass book. Well, a review of it. So they go back to her apartment. Fallon and Ben go back to her apartment because they're spending the whole day together, these complete strangers. He meets her roommate's boyfriend, who we barely see. They are completely irrelevant to the story, as per usual with Colleen Hoover's side characters. I mean, do you remember the gay guy from Ugly Love? I bet you don't. I barely do. And of course, he's at her apartment trying to get her to show her underwear, because, you know, it's a Colleen Hoover love interest. He makes them a fancy restaurant reservation at some French place, and he picks out a dress for her to wear. This is where I started to hate him. We're barely into the book, of course. She's like, I don't want to wear that dress because it'll show my scars and I'm not comfortable. And her saying no should be the end of it. But alas, not in a Colleen Hoover book. She says she's not going to wear it because people feel uncomfortable seeing her scars. And then he makes this speech about how she's so beautiful and also so insecure. And he says, when everything about you screams look away, that's what people are gonna do. This is the worst boy teaches girl not to be insecure about her looks that I have seen since, I don't know, the early 2000s. Feels like those really shallow teen movies. And then he takes her shirt off. Great. And she cries. Even better. We're on chapter 3. What the fuck are we doing, Colleen? He also takes off her pants, and then he puts her dress on. Before they go on their date, he's weirdly into her scars. I just want to remind you that I knew, you're not supposed to know, but I knew that he caused them. So he's being weird about her scars, they're laying in bed together, and then they fall asleep. They missed their dinner reservation, her flight is in 3 hours. She says, I'm not willing to fall in love until I'm 23. They're only 18. So she won't give him her phone number or her email address. And so, with no dinner to go to, they make out. Ben's a writer, by the way. He's in school for writing. And she's like, you should write a romance, because I like romance books. And he's like, I don't like romance books. He says, the only way I'm willing to write a romance is if you and I are the main characters. I'll make you a deal. If you promise to audition for Broadway, I'll write a book about the relationship we could have had if not for distance and maturity. Or, better idea, we pack it up and I'll go home. Then they're like, what if we meet every year on this same date for the next 5 years until we're 23? We will pick up where we left off every year, once a year for 1 day. This sounds like a great romance story. If you fictionalize it, I'll add it to the top of my TBR. Oh my god, the language in this. I don't mind people saying like, I'll add it to the top of my TBR in real life, but when we say it in a book, I'm like, stop, I hate it. I don't know why, but I hate it. However, this actually isn't like a bad idea. I would like it if it were written by someone who actually makes good characters. For instance, one of my favorite movies has a similar premise, a lot like Love with Ashton Kutcher and Amanda Peet. I should have just rewatched that instead of being subjected to this. Why did I choose Colleen Hoover and her shenanigans over a movie that I know and love? So she writes down 5 of her favorite romance novels for him to read, which again, cute. I don't hate this idea. And I just would have liked it in a different book. And she says, I don't want you to write our book with insta-love. And he makes a comment that they are not in an insta-love position. Colleen, being self-aware doesn't make it less cringy. He makes rules for her. You have to go on 5 dates, kiss at least 2 people, and get laughed at once a week. So he's trying to get her to be more confident. He takes her to the airport. They have a romantic, angsty goodbye. Apparently he kisses her so hard she, quote, forgets who she is. I wish Carlos would come kiss me so hard I'd forget I read this book. Babe, come here for a sec. Next year, November 9, their second November 9. By the second November 9, he has read 26 romance novels because he's an overachiever and a piece of shit. Don't forget that. I hope he read some good ones and that they, taught him not to be such a weirdo. Oh, wait, nope, no such luck, according to my note. But he says he's been reading books where women like aloof alpha males, so doesn't bode well for the rest of this book, does it? And he's already talking about finding out the color of her panties yet again. I would never date a man like this. And you shouldn't either. They end up meeting at his house. She tells him that she's only staying 1 day. She flew from New York to California to spend the day. He doesn't want her to see what he's been writing, their story. Because again, if she found out, like we know this now, the audience is not supposed to know at this point. Well, you and I know that he is obviously going to have to admit that he burned down her house. Like that's the real love story. Oh, there was a line in here that said, did you just say sigh out loud? I roll. Colleen, jail. There was another line in here. It's great chemistry. The banter. Woo-wee. 0 out of 10. Are you booksting me? It's like sexting but out loud and with books. It's actually not. It's just terrible. He explains to her, I read so many romance books. The alpha male books made me feel inadequate. I could never say things like I own you during sex. And she's like, that's not the kind of guy I want in real life. If a guy said during sex, you're so wet for me, I would be worried that I peed myself. And I'm like, you know what? Who is this scene written for? The girls who feel this way already know this, Colleen. We don't need it explained to us in fiction. She tells him she did go on a date with one guy a few times like he asked her to. And he's like, okay, tell me about this boy. I need a subplot for the book. And she says, does that mean you have an actual plot for the book? Colleen, I swear to God, I am asking the same question. She says that the guy she went on a date with seemed kind of weirded out by her scars and she doesn't want him or anyone else to see her left breast, which was majorly harmed by the fire. Am I looking at the left breast, which was majorly harmed by the fire? Wow, can't tell left and rights, but y'all trust me to review books. And he tells her, again, how to feel about her own body and how other people perceive her, like how to feel about that, to which her inner monologue says, I'm so pissed he thinks he has the right to talk to me that way, but the fact that he talked to me that way made me wish my heart had lips so it could kiss him. I'm done. One pair of lips seemingly just isn't enough. Her heart must also sprout lips with which to kiss this mediocre man. So anyways, they start making out. He takes off her bra, he sees her left breast, and then his roommate's girlfriend walks in after he has sucked on her titties. families. But his roommate is revealed to also be his brother. The fiance and the brother are getting married tomorrow, November 10th. Again, this is very much like A Lot Like Love, actually. That also happened in A Lot Like Love. Why are you writing a worse version of A Lot Like Love? And another one of his brothers shows up, Ian, who's a pilot. At this point, I was like, if this is a character, if this is a cameo from the character for Ugly Love, I can't imagine who on earth would care about that shit, but it's definitely not me. And then he says, Miles took today's run for me about work, and I was like, oh, so it is in fact the guy from Ugly Love. Great. I will be docking a star just for that. That is hyperbole. But also, oh my god, I hated Ugly Love so much. So his brother Kyle.
What the fuck is up, Kyle? No, what did you say, dude? What the fuck, dude? Step the fuck up, Kyle.
The engaged one, not the pilot, Ian, shows up, and you can tell that it's Kyle because Colleen wrote, Ben stops short when he sees Kyle. His eyes widen a little as if he's shocked to see Kyle. Wow, great writing. We definitely needed Kyle in there twice. Kyle's acting weird around Fallon as soon as he sees her and her scars. Why do you think that is? And here, this is like the first and only hint that we got that something is happening. And I'm like, oh, the big reveal's coming. And Kyle is immediately mad at Ben. And you know what? Team Kyle. Meanwhile, Ben is like, shut the fuck up, Kyle.
What the fuck is up, Kyle?
Kyle pushes Ben against a wall. Fallon's confused. Kyle punches Ben in the face, which is great. I would like some more of that. And we switch to Ben's POV, and Colleen made the decision to not deal with this at all. Ben doesn't think about why Kyle's mad at him, which certainly doesn't make any fucking sense. It's cheap. It's Colleen trying to do unreliable narrator and instead just taking the easy way out. A cheap way to throw you off the scent so that when the reveal comes, it's shocking. But it's cheap. This should have been written in third. Switching to Ben's POV, it just doesn't make sense because you have basic questions like, what the fuck was that about? Kyle obviously saw Fallon and then got mad. I hate when we suddenly make our main character aloof and also do unreliable narrator in the worst way possible in order to prolong the reveal. It just feels so incredibly cheap. He tells her about his relationship with Kyle and she does not interrogate what just happened at all, which does not make any sense. Anyways, they finally have a conversation learning basic info about each other. Remember that they've known each other technically for a year and have spent all of 12 hours maybe together. She's doing a community theater play in New York, still doing audio narration for books, and she asks him, do you even have a job? You've known him for a year. You don't know anything about him. She says, I let you fondle my breasts and I don't even know what you do for work. You sure did, didn't you? That is a thing I experienced while reading this. And hey, listen, more power to you if you want to hook up. It's just, I just personally hate Ben, so I'm judging a little. And he says he's attending UCLA full time. He decides he wants a tattoo right then. So we hustle on over to get a tattoo on his wrist that says poetic and something like with a music note attached, which is about as cringe as the rest of this has been, if we're being honest. And while he's getting this tattoo, she's sitting in his lap asking him basic questions like, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite meal? Who was your last girlfriend? And his question to her is, what's your favorite song lyric? To which she answers, you're so gorgeous because you make me feel gorgeous by the Ex-Ambassadors. Great, this is definitely plot. They agree to meet each other in New York the next November 9. He drops her off at the airport, but then he buys a ticket, shows up on the airplane just to give her homework for the year like he did the last year. And this year's homework is go visit your father. Remember her dad, Mr. O'Neill, that piece of shit who's like, you can't make it in Hollywood because you're ugly and you don't date. And also he stopped apologizing for the fire she thinks at this point he started, even though he's a complete shithead of a dad and she might not want to talk to him. Ben tells her to do this one small thing. If Carlos asked me to talk to my dad, or even vice versa, we would have grounds to slap each other in the face. Honestly, if Carlos said I should call my dad, I would think he was having a stroke. It's just a dick move, so shut up forever. Shout out Natalie, who taught me that phrase. Fallon doesn't feel this way though. She thinks that this is a time when insta-love actually works. So great. The 3rd November 9th, she's speaking to her dad again. She's in an off-Broadway production. Good for her. She went on dates. Good for her. Wish we had seen this, stuff. She's so excited to see him, but he calls the restaurant and says he's really sorry, but he's not coming because his brother Kyle was in a wreck and died, which is convenient that the, person who knows what Ben did died, certainly. And so they're gonna meet again next year instead. Over in Ben's POV, Miles and Tate are there. Yay, from Ugly Love. Remember Miles and Tate? They're pregnant now. And you know who else is pregnant? His dead brother's wife. Because if there's one thing that Colleen Hoover is gonna do, it's inflict trauma on pregnant people and or new mothers. Great. And somehow Fallon fucking fast traveled all the way from New York to California and is on his doorstep same day. They snuggle, and at this point I'm thinking, oh, thank God they're not jumping into each other's arms and having sex, because if we had to deal with a my brother is dead sex scene, I would have died inside. That was what I was thinking at this moment. Then they go have food with his family. Convenient that, again, the brother who knows Ben's deep dark secret is dead now. They finally explain their dynamic to his family and they say, oh, it's like Sleepless in Seattle. And another person says, no, it's not like that. It's actually like One Day, that movie with Anne Hathaway. First of all, no, it's actually a lot like Love, and please get your rom-coms right. Second of all, I cannot believe that this is what passes for dialogue these days, but it gets worse because Ben is like, then I get defensive, but writers get defensive when their ideas are compared to others, but mine and Fallon's story is one of a kind. Barely. It's barely one of a kind. It could have been one of a kind if you made this romantic suspense. She's gonna spend the night, asks for a t-shirt. He doesn't want her going in the closet because his manuscript is in there and he doesn't want her, assumedly, we're thinking like he doesn't want her to read it. And I knew why, because, you know, he admits in it to committing arson. Anyway, she wears his t-shirt, which makes him super horny. And you remember when I was like, oh, thank God they're not having sex right after he, you know, lost his brother? That's out the window. I could never be so lucky in a Colleen Hoover book. And she is so horny. She's suddenly like, actually, I don't care about my 5-year plan. Let's throw it all out. Give me your phone number. Give me your email address. She's like, yes, I'll give it to you. And he's like, this is the best sex I've ever had and I'm not even inside you yet. You know what's inside? My soul. My deceased soul. It's at this point I was like, oh, they really are going to fuck. And then right after she's gonna find his manuscript and then leave and never give him her number. That's not what happened. Isn't that depressing? And so they fuck and it's the best sex to ever sex because of course it's a Colleen Hoover book. And in fact, that's like most of the books these days that I'm reading is like, this was the best sex ever. And I'm just bored. He says, no combination of words could ever do this moment justice. Okay, Jack Johnson, that's great. Let's skip to the banana pancakes so I can revive my weary soul. And she asks him, how are you going to write about our sex scene? And it says, I guess I'll just have to fade to black. And scene. Great work, guys. It was fade to black and I still got the ick. Afterwards, it says, I'm not sure if sex is supposed to make you feel like you've lost part of yourself to the person inside you, but that's exactly what it felt like. Gross. Now he wants to say, I own you during sex because it was so good. So he's, you know, finally becoming the alpha that the romance books taught him to be. Kill me. He wants to move to New York. She's like, what about the book? And I'm like, what do you mean, what about the book? Apparently he's got an agent. Great. He can write from anywhere. It's fiction. He can make up an ending. You guys don't actually have to play out this plan. He can just make up an ending. What's wrong with you? Are you good? So in the night, Fallon is eating pizza with dead brother's wife at 4 a.m. and she tells Fallon, oh, Ben signed with an agent. Then he can't move to New York, but Jordan, dead brother Kyle's wife, also needs help. And she's like, he can't leave her. She needs help raising the baby. So in the morning, she tells him, hey, original plan back on. No, you can't have my number. No, you can't have my email. And calls a cab. And he says, I've never wanted to use physical force on a girl before, but I want to push her to the ground and hold her there until the cab drives away. Sir? Jail. That'll be 1 jail. Pay up. She basically says, he asks her like, are you gonna love me? And she's like, I don't want to love you right now. And she leaves. Next year, on November 9, this one made me laugh hysterically. Not with them, but at them. She has moved back to LA and he doesn't know. She's an acting coach now. He shows up to their meeting with his baby nephew in tow, Oliver. And she figures out that he is now dating his dead brother, Kyle's wife, Jordan. Here's me sitting at my computer listening to this and finding this out in real time. That is so embarrassing. Stop it. Oh my God. Oh man, that is embarrassing. I do not care about these people at all. Oh my gosh, what a bunch of idiots. Absolutely just laughing hysterically. Next year on November 9, she doesn't meet him. She goes out with her friend and this guy Theodore, who's really into her, who only exists so that he could get in a fight with Ben and Ben can prove that he's the better guy, even though he's not. Ben shows up and her and Ben sneak off and fool around in a random broom closet or some shit. I don't care about any of this. I'm just like, when the fuck is he gonna explain how he burned down her house? Because we're getting to the end of the book, okay? He gets in a fight with Theodore. He's like, Fallon, I'm the guy for you. They leave together. He tells her, me and Jordan dissolved our relationship. They go home. They have sex. She gets up in the middle of the night and finds his manuscript, finally. She reads the POV of the argument between him and Kyle years ago, the one she never thought to ask basic questions about. Does she know, Ben, that you're the one that started the fire, that you're the reason she almost died? And her first thought is, how could he write this fake plot line? Girly pop. Oh god. I almost wish it wasn't true so he wasn't capitalizing off my story. He didn't start that fire. Did he? Yeah. Why would he write it? Oh my god. So then she decides to read the prologue of his book where he admits he did it again. She's freaking out. She's like, is this fact? Is this fiction? My personal opinion is, girl, leave either way. You're in danger. This man is a creep. Now at this point, the way I assume that this is gonna go is they're gonna fight, she's gonna leave, they'll reunite the next November 9, and he'll say, I burned your house down because your mean dad was dating my mom and he broke her heart. I didn't know you were inside the house. I'm sorry, but I'm glad it happened because otherwise we'd never be together. And they'll kiss and she'll be like, I forgive you. The end. Let's see if I'm right. Either way, it's miserable. He wakes up, finds her with his manuscript. She says she realizes he's a stranger. No shit. No shit. No shit? No shit. She gets in a cab. He forces his manuscript upon her through the window and begs her to read it and not hate him. Girlfriend, you should burn it. Who cares why he did it? No explanation will make this okay. And you know what? For once, Fallon does the logical thing and throws the manuscript out the window of the cab. Good for her. A year later, she is holed up in her apartment at midnight on November 9th, okay? She says she regrets everything she wasted on him. Says that last year after leaving his apartment, she filed a restraining order against him. Good. However, breaking the restraining order, he leaves a box at her doorstep with the manuscript and a note. He's like, read this for yourself, and the best version of you doesn't include me. Sir, she threw it out the car window. If she wanted it, she would have asked. And you know how this whole time her mom has been like the driving force behind her not wanting to settle down with anybody until she's 23? Because that's what she said at the beginning of the book. That's why they made this entire idea of, let's wait 5 years before we figure out if we really want to be together. Well, for some reason, Colleen decided, let's throw that out the window just like we threw the manuscript out the cab window. She falls asleep sometime after midnight, wakes up the morning of November 9. Her mom is in her apartment reading the manuscript, bawling, okay? Fallon goes to throw the manuscript away and her mom is like, don't you dare throw that away. And she says, you weren't the only one scarred in that fire. Just because he hasn't shown you his scars doesn't mean they don't exist. He put his scars on full display for you, and you need to show him the respect he showed you by not turning away from them. As a mother, I'm horrified. I'm filing charges. I am disgusted. You're a piece of shit, mom. You're a bad mom. Bad mom award. Jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Jail. Mom jail. So now that her mom has sufficiently convinced her that actually what happened is justifiable and she needs to respect this man and read his manuscript, okay? She reads it. Chapter 1 is him finding his mother dead in her room and she died by suicide. He goes through his mom's phone and email to try to figure out why she died by suicide and realizes that she had been in a relationship with a guy named Donovan O'Neill. So at this point, I'm like, oh, I called it, right? I find the way his mom's death to be talked about gross. It says, mom hated her life more than she loved her kids. Suicide is the most selfish thing you can do. I was super uncomfortable reading this. I think that that's gross. So he decides to go to this Donovan O'Neill's house, sees Donovan outside on the phone, assumes that Donovan is learning about his mom's death, and Donovan doesn't get upset enough for Ben. So he lights Donovan's car on fire. And after he drives away, he realizes that the fire got out of control patrol did not stay secluded to Donovan's car, but instead lit the whole house on fire. And inside the house was Fallon. At home, he tells his brother Kyle, they turn on the news and they find out that him, burning the place down majorly harmed Fallon. And this was November 9, years and years ago. We then hear that Ben was so fucked up after his mom died and he burned down a house with a girl inside. Now, of course he's fucked up from that, but his feelings are not my priority. I'm sorry. But that's what we do in a Colleen Hoover book. Ugly Love was the same. Rachel's pain was swapped out for Miles. And what about this, Rachel? What about my pain? And Fallon's pain is swapped out for Ben's. I mean, in that very conversation with her own mother. So then he eventually finally actually gets to read the note that his mom left before she died. And in it she says that she has ovarian cancer and that's why she chose to die by suicide. It wasn't about dating Fallon's dad at all. So now the dying by suicide is presented as not selfish because it was for financial reasons. She didn't want them to be in debt and lose the house over her very aggressive cancer. Again, all of this, just the way we're talking about it feels very uncomfortable. I had I was friends with somebody in high school and we fell out of touch, but she married somebody else that we went to high school with and they had several kids together, and unfortunately he found out that he had cancer and he died by suicide right after this. And I just imagine her like cracking this open and just being horrified like reading this. I just find this like incredibly insensitive. Chapter 4 of his own book is him talking about how he regularly gets blackout drunk and wakes up naked in someone else's bed. This is here to remind us that we should feel sorry for him, just like we needed to feel sorry for Miles in the last book, because these men drink when, they realize that something terrible happened with another, woman that they love, be it a mom or a stepsister. He goes to his mom's gravesite, and who should turn up but Fallon's dad, Donovan. So he follows Donovan, who goes to a restaurant. This is all in his book, okay? So we're finding out how we got to the beginning of the book. He follows Donovan from his mom's gravesite to the restaurant, and now we've circled back to the beginning of the book with Fallon and her dad, Donovan, at the restaurant and why Ben was there. And he's thinking, how could my mom have loved this guy? Maybe she didn't. In the text I saw, it was mostly one-sided on his side. And I'm like, it was one-sided on his side? Then why did you feel like you needed to burn his house down? And of course, he starts thinking things like, now that I've seen her, Fallon, I never want to stop. And her dad's so mean to her. Does he even know what she's been through in the last 2 years? You did that. You did that. You did that. Colleen, we are enemies. Conveniently, her dad doesn't know his ex-girlfriend's son. Great. Let's consider for a moment that at the beginning of this book, okay, we were in Ben's mind, in Ben's POV, and he thought, are her breasts scarred too? How much of her body is really affected? I begin to mentally undress her, and not in a sexual way. I'm just curious, really curious. You're the cause of the burns. That's super inappropriate. And when they were having sex, by the way, his touching of her scars started to get majorly creepy. Again, he caused the burns. He caused them. And so for him to be lying about that, and then almost it felt like getting turned on by then. Oh, Colleen. So in the present, we switched back to Fallon's POV. She finished reading the book and it says, I know I should be mad at him for lying to me for so long, but being in his head is somehow justifying his behavior. Verbatim, justifying his behavior. I am no longer advocating for Colleen for jail. I am now advocating for federal prison. Federal prison, do not pass go. I am done. This is so that was the most disgust. She not only makes excuses for Ben, she also makes excuses for her dad. He was just being a parent. Bitch, what he was saying was, you're not pretty enough to be an actress and you never go on dates. I knocked up a 24-year-old and I don't care about your feelings on this. This is so disgusting. She's like excusing his behavior. Like, Colleen Hoover books are always just, a woman needs to excuse men's behavior at every turn. And that's what happens. Multiple women in every book excuse the main man's behavior. Why? Ben has a note in the manuscript that's like, I only told you one lie by omission. Us meeting was fate. I love you. Meet me at the restaurant. And right before midnight, she meets him in the parking lot of the restaurant where they met. Ben, this is where it gets, I was really raging at this point. This book at this point pissed me off more than Ugly Love did, okay? Ben, I didn't come here to forgive you. Sometimes people make mistakes. You don't need my forgiveness. I need yours. Your heart is so full of love. I should have listened to you last year. We could have avoided an entire year of heartache, and for that, I'm sorry. No! No! no. See, this is the part where we should have stabbed Ben. We should have stabbed him. Between finishing his stupid manuscript and showing up at this restaurant, she got a tattoo of an open book with a comedy mask and a tragedy mask, which is another thing that I wish I never knew about. And they kiss, and it says they live happily ever after. I'm dead inside. Ah, Colleen, hi. Oh my God, my kid's in here. Hi.
Why are you screaming?
Well, there's just this lady named Colleen Hoover, and she just writes really terrible books. Really bad, really not good books. They just make me so upset. Are you having an Oreo?
Oreo Day.
Awesome.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. So that was November 9 by Colleen Hoover. I really thought that, I really did. I cracked this open. I was like, at least it's not as bad as Ugly Love. Wow. To be young and naive as I was last month when I hadn't realized how much of a turn this was gonna take, I am disgusted. I think that if we were gonna fix this, it can't be a romance. You can't. Like, I feel like her, you know, like finding out that he was all these people, like, okay, if we were gonna do this like romantic suspense, it can't end with them being together. It has to end with her killing him or him going to jail. Like, it would have been so, I mean, basically I'm just turning this into a thriller, but like, what if he realizes that his brother knows that he caused that fire and he kills his brother to keep him quiet and he makes it look like an accident, and then, you know, he's been keeping this like manuscript a secret, and then she finds out all of this, and like there were little clues along the way, but you kept thinking no, he would never do that, and it's, you know, in third person, so you think like, oh, I know what's going on, but then maybe we finally get an inner POV from Ben and you're like, oh, we're switching to first. That's weird. We do a midpoint reversal, and then we start to see that Ben is not who we thought he was the whole time, and then we slowly descend into madness, and then at the end Fallon, you know, kills him. Wouldn't that have been more fun? Colleen Hoover should just write thrillers, because then I won't get so mad at watching her excuse terrible behavior of men. Because like, I could have had a good time if this was a thriller. Like, it could have been romantic up to the, you know, like the midpoint reversal, and then it's like, oh no, that's not who I thought he was, and then we're just slowly descending into madness, and then it all blows up in the end. But no, unfortunately they lived happily ever after, and his behavior was justified. Her words. Terrible, terrible book. Terrible. I'm so glad it's over, but my God, I just want to throw things at Colleen Hoover. That's it. That's my review of November 9. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed raging with me. Let me know which one I should read next. No, I will not be reading Verity. Everybody's like, don't read it. Listen, I know I'm staying away from it. I know it'll trigger the shit out of me. In particular, like, I cannot read that book, so I'm gonna avoid it, but let me know what other ones you think are an option for, you know, the next review, the next Colleen Hoover review. Maybe they won't be as bad. Never mind. I don't even believe that myself anymore. Okay, thanks for watching. See you next time. Leave your comments and questions down below. Okay, bye. Hello, it's Trashcan Rachel, and I'm just here to say thank you for being a friend to my Therapy Bills patrons, and those are Alexander, Brittany Bobitney, Cammy, Choco's Waiting for Not All Men podcast, Chris, Dalton, DJ Rocktopus, Ellie, Emperor's New Blues, Aaron with 2 E's, Eric, Ethel Go Lightly, Galaxy Bot, Jack, Jesse, Jill, Jess, John E, Julie D, Kelly No K, Casey McKenzie, Kate W, Caitlin M, Quinn, Lady Kittybug, Lemon Jelly, Lex, Lily B, Max B, Mixer Boneless, Alice, Panoramic Demon, Peggy Lou, Rain, Reese, SJ, Samar, Scarlet, Shiny, SMK, Spoopy, Steph B, 2 Orbit, White Raven 13, Zorvictia, and Chai Guy. Thank you all so much for being here and being a friend. And last but not least, before I go, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my Potato Starch Marxist patrons, and those are Alejandra, Alicia, Amanda, Amanda D, Andy, Angelica, Anita, Artie the Ninth, Ashley H, Ava, Ballads and Bookends, Beck, Blake Lemon Pants, Blythe, Bookish Bats, Bookish Brain Rot, Bree, Caitlin, Cardinal Ginger, Carlin, Casper, Kate W, Catherine, Kathy, Chris, CJ, Clementine, Cole, Colleen, Corwin, Cosmic, Danielle, Darren, Deborah, Diet Goth, Dilf Enthusiast, Dorian, Dorothea, E.T. Cosgrove, Ebby, Emerald Dodge, Emily A, Emily L, Emma, Aaron, Ezra, Fiona, Gadarn, Hannah C, Harpy Kuro, Haley G, Ilianaka, India Inks, JM Tennant, Jakenna, Jay is on Olympus, Jelly V, Jen Michelle, Genderqueer, Jenny G, Jessa Sue, Jillian, Jojo Bookish, Kat, Catherine, Katie L, Kaylee, Kayala, Kendra, Kiara, Laughing Cat Dog, Laura, Lauren, Lazarus Ray, Library of Scars, Lindsay M, Lisa B, Lisa L, LP, Luciri, Lustful Octopus, Martin, Madison, Man-Eating Plant, Marcella, Marquita, Malara, Mentally Unwell, May, Molly, James, Natalie, Never, Nicole G, Nicole R, Nyan Binary, Paige P, Penny Chilling, Foxglove, Rachel B, Reba, Rebecca, Rivi, Ronnie, Rosie, Rowan, Sequoia, Sadie, Sakia Lume, Samantha, Sammy, Sarah, Sarah the Bear, Sarah Z, Shamed, Shannon, Sheen Onion, Sean, T. Delegati, Tay, Talia, 3 Old Dogs, Tiana, Toast, Trashcan Teddy, Tito Phoenix, and Writer A. Thank you all so much for being a friend.